My mother made us weigh ourselves twice every morning, claiming the first reading might be off, and rationed her affection based on the number. When I once asked why she treated us that way, she pinched my stomach and said, "Look at your sister. She gets it. Beauty demands sacrifice." I just stared at her. That was 10 years ago. Today, she's in maximum security after they raided her house. After I turned 8 and my older sister Ivy was 9, our mom became the most weight-obsessed person I'd ever known. Every morning began with stepping on the scale twice, just to make sure. If either of us gained even half a pound, we'd lose privileges like watching cartoons or playing in the yard. The rule was clear: the heavier you were, the less love you got. But I couldn't handle the hunger. It was like my brain couldn't focus on anything except food. So I started sneaking crackers into the bathroom to eat in secret. Meanwhile, Ivy became Mom's perfect little skeleton. Her nightly ritual was 2 hours of jumping jacks from 8 to 10 p.m. She'd chew her food just for the taste and spit it into napkins she'd hide behind school radiators. Like, what in the world? And instead of helping her, our mom praised her even more. When Ivy had 65 pounds at age 12, Mom took her on a $2,000 shopping spree at the mall. Designer jeans in size 00, crop tops to show off her jutting ribs, whatever she wanted. "Look at your sister," Mom would say while pinching my waist. "She understands that beauty requires sacrifice." I just stared at her. That was 10 years ago. Today, she's in maximum security after they raided her house. After I turned 8 and my older sister Ivy was 9, our mom became the most weight-obsessed person I'd ever known. Every morning began with stepping on the scale twice, just to make sure. If either of us gained even half a pound, we'd lose privileges like watching cartoons or playing in the yard. The rule was clear: the heavier you were, the less love you got. But I couldn't handle the hunger. It was like my brain couldn't focus on anything except food. So I started sneaking crackers into the bathroom to eat in secret. Meanwhile, Ivy became Mom's perfect little skeleton. Her nightly ritual was 2 hours of jumping jacks from 8 to 10 p.m. She'd chew her food just for the taste, then spit it into napkins she'd hide behind school radiators. Like, what in the world? And instead of helping her, our mom praised her even more. When Ivy hit 65 pounds at age 12, Mom took her on a $2,000 shopping spree at the mall. Designer jeans in size 00, crop tops to show off her jutting ribs, whatever she wanted. "Look at your sister," Mom would say while pinching my waist. "She understands that beauty requires sacrifice." I just stared at her. Don't you think you've gotten a little fat? I desperately wanted to be the kind of girl who didn't need anyone, but I wasn't. So I started trying to earn Mom's love my own way. Instead of starving, I brought home straight A's, cleaned the house every morning, and won every science fair I entered. But it was never enough. "You should use all that energy on something that matters, like fixing your diet," she'd say. Deep down, I always knew what she was doing was wrong, but when I tried telling relatives, they'd just gush about how perfect Mom's figure was and say I should listen to her. So I gaslit myself into thinking it was normal until I turned 13. That's when I came home and found Ivy collapsed in the hallway with an empty bottle of Mom's prescription diet pills beside her. My hands shook as I called 911 and moved her into the recovery position. When I leaned in, she whispered, "I just wanted to lose 5 more pounds for Mom's birthday." Her voice trembled, and when she woke up in the hospital bed, the first thing she asked was whether she looked thinner. That's when I knew I'd lost her. After that, I played along just to get by. I skipped breakfast and dinner most days, and I sucked in my stomach whenever Mom was around to avoid the screaming. But everything changed when I turned 15. That's when my dad finally came back. He'd been working overseas for most of my life, but one of the first things he did after returning was file for divorce and full custody. Mom fought it hard, but she couldn't explain away the condition of me and Ivy's medical records. I moved in with Dad and gradually learned to eat like a normal person again. Ivy told the court she wanted to stay with Mom. By my senior year, I was healthy. I played volleyball, I enjoyed food. Then came my 18th birthday. I hadn't seen my mom in years when Dad asked if I wanted to spend the day with her and Ivy. I said yes, not thinking it would be a big deal. On the day, I wore loose clothes to avoid comments about my body, but nothing could have prepared me for what I saw. The moment Ivy opened the door, I felt bile rise in my throat. She looked like the cancer patients you see online. Cheekbones cutting through skin like tissue paper, arms like brittle sticks, hair falling out in clumps. Like, what in the world? And I couldn't help thinking it was all Mom's fault. Ivy, what the? Oh my God, you've gotten so effing huge! My heart cracked open, and before I could respond, Mom appeared behind her. What have you done to yourself? She screamed, grabbing at my waist. You were finally making progress, and now look at you. You're disgusting. I tried to leave, but Mom blocked the doorway. You're not going anywhere until you drink this, she said, pulling out one of those meal replacement shakes. It's only 200 calories.
You need to get back on track right now. When I refused, she tried to physically force it into my mouth. The smell made me gag. It was clearly expired, thick and rancid. Mom, stop, I yelled, but she got Ivy to hold my arms down while she tried to pry my mouth open. I was screaming and crying as the shake splattered everywhere. She kept saying, "This is for your own good," while basically waterboarding me with diet products. I managed to break free and ran to the bathroom, locking the door and calling Dad. They pounded on the door while Mom screamed that I was choosing to be ugly and rejecting everything she'd ever taught me. Dad called 911 and jumped in the car. By the time the police arrived, I'd already thrown up 3 times. Part stress, part whatever expired chemicals had made it into my mouth. The officers took one look at Ivy and immediately called for paramedics. I didn't know it then, but we were about to take our revenge together. The medics rushed Ivy onto a stretcher as I stood there shaking, watching her frail body disappear into the ambulance. That's when she reached out with her bony fingers and pulled me close. Her lips barely moved as she whispered something that made my blood run cold. She made me take laxatives this morning, too. My stomach dropped. Outside, Mom was screaming at the police, ranting about her parental rights, flailing her arms and putting on a full performance for the neighbors now gathered to watch. One officer tried to calm her down, while another scribbled notes. I climbed into the ambulance with Ivy. The EMT, a young guy with kind eyes, began checking her vitals. With every reading, his face darkened. The heart monitor blinked in sluggish rhythm. Dangerous bradycardia. Her heart was barely beating fast enough to keep her alive. My phone buzzed. Mom was following the ambulance, texting while driving. "You're destroying our family. How could you do this to us?" The EMT muttered under his breath while recording Ivy's weight. 78 pounds. He shook his head and adjusted her IV drip. As we reached the hospital entrance, chaos exploded. Mom screeched into the parking lot, jumped out of the car, and sprinted toward us, waving papers in the air and yelling about her medical power of attorney. "I'm her mother. I make all medical decisions for my daughter." That's when Dad stepped out from where he'd been waiting by the emergency entrance. He held up a thick folder. "Actually, I filed emergency paperwork this morning. Judge Martinez signed it an hour ago." Mom's face went ghost white, then flushed red. Dad knew this was coming. He was ready. The hospital staff wheeled Ivy through the automatic doors while Mom tried to follow. Security stopped her to verify documents. Then a woman in her 30s with a clipboard and a gentle smile approached me. "Hi, I'm Laura from the hospital social services. I need to speak with family members about Ivy's care." She turned to me first, her expression tightening slightly. "You're the sister who called 911? I nodded. "Can you explain why you haven't been in contact with Ivy for 3 years? Why did you leave her when she was sick?" It hit me like a punch to the gut. I tried explaining about the custody battle, about Mom's restrictions, but Laura just kept writing notes, her face unreadable. Mom pounced on the moment. "She abandoned us. She chose her father over her family, and now she shows up and causes this drama." A nurse peeked out from the ER door. "We need to start treatment immediately. Who's making medical decisions?" As Mom and Dad argued over paperwork, I stood frozen. I had to choose, stay by Ivy's side or go give my statement to the police waiting just outside. I could hear Mom at the intake area, already poisoning the air. "My younger daughter has a history of violence. I have texts where she said she wanted to kill me." The nurse's eyebrows rose. Mom pulled out her phone, scrolling dramatically. I remembered those texts. I'd written them when I was 13, right after Ivy's overdose. Stupid, furious messages like, "I hate you so much I could kill you," sent after she forced me to weigh myself in front of our relatives. But security cameras were everywhere, one pointed directly at the intake area, recording every word, every lie, every scene Mom put on. Good, I thought. Let them see the performance. Just then, Dad arrived, just as Mom found Ivy's assigned doctor, a man who already looked like he'd seen too much for one day.
Looking man in scrubs, she immediately launched into a tirade about my mental stability. How I'd suddenly shown up after years of no contact. How I was the one who triggered this entire incident. Behind them, through the glass doors of the trauma bay, I saw Ivy's monitors begin to flash and beep. Her heart was going into palpitations. The medical team rushed to her side. I ran toward the trauma bay, but the attending doctor held up his hand, blocking my way. They were administering meds, adjusting her IV, trying to stabilize the arrhythmia. I pressed myself against the glass, helpless, while behind me, Mom kept talking to anyone who'd listen. The intake nurse typed rapidly into the computer. I caught a glance at the screen. Sister has anger issues per mother. When Dad's lawyer arrived 20 minutes later, a wave of relief hit me. Finally, someone who could make sense of this chaos. But his face was tight as he pulled Dad aside. We've got a problem. She's been recording conversations. Mom turned toward us, smiling that cold, practiced smile I knew from childhood. She held up her phone. I've been documenting everything for the past month. Every call, every visit. She hit play. My voice echoed through the waiting room, clipped, stripped of context. I hate you enough to hurt you. The security guards shifted uncomfortably. Sarah, the social worker, jotted down more notes. Even Dad's lawyer looked rattled. If she's been building a case, these recordings could complicate everything, he said quietly. An alarm went off inside the trauma bay. I turned in time to see the team working frantically over Ivy. Someone said the word code. She'd flatlined, but they managed to bring her back. Then 2 police officers entered the waiting room. One held an evidence bag. Inside were containers taken from Mom's purse. Those same meal replacement shakes she tried to force into my mouth. The officer examined one. "Ma'am, this product expired in 2019. And this one," he held up a bottle with a skull and crossbones symbol, "hasn't been legal to sell since 2016. Where did you get these?" Mom's face twitched. "Those are prescription supplements from my doctor." "Which doctor?" the officer asked, pulling out his notebook. Before she could answer, another woman stepped forward. Child Protective Services. "I'm Dana. We've received a report of medical neglect and endangerment. We'll need to investigate both parents." Dad's face crumpled. He'd thought he was rescuing us, doing the right thing. Now he was under investigation too. The next few hours blurred. Ivy was stabilized and moved to the ICU. Mom somehow managed to convince multiple staff members that I was a threat to her recovery. She showed them screenshots from old social media posts, me eating pizza at college parties. "Look at her glorifying binge eating. She's a toxic influence on someone in recovery." She listened to every word, occasionally glancing at me with that same unreadable, wary expression. By the time visiting hours were finalized, the hospital had restricted my access to Ivy. Only parents allowed, one at a time. Mom's phone rang. Her voice instantly turned syrupy sweet, faux tears in her throat. I recognized the voice on the other end, my old volleyball coach from high school. "Yes, Coach Bennett. I'm just so worried about her. She's having some sort of mental breakdown. Maybe you could talk to her. She always looked up to you." I couldn't believe it. She was recruiting allies, spinning her web. As soon as that call ended, she made another, this time to someone from her Pilates group, someone who worked at a local news station. Across the room, Dad's lawyer flipped through a thick binder. His frown deepened. "There's a court order from 3 years ago. She was granted sole authority over medical decisions." He handed the paper to Dad. "You never challenged this?" Dad shook his head, stunned. "I was overseas when it was filed." He paused. "The date? This was filed 1 day before I came back, 1 day before I filed for divorce. Mom had planned this, all of it." My phone buzzed, notifications pouring in. I'd posted online for support, explaining the situation, but the comments weren't what I expected.
"Your mother is worried sick about you. This vendetta against your family needs to stop. Get help before you hurt someone." She'd mobilized her entire network against me. Every comment painted me as unstable, dangerous, unhinged. Some referenced my so-called history of threatening behavior, those same old texts Mom had shared out of context. I tried to respond, to explain, but more replies poured in faster than I could type. Someone had even taken a screenshot of my post and shared it in a local mom group with the caption, "This poor mother, dealing with a violent daughter." Dad placed a hand on my shoulder. "Don't engage, you're just giving her more fuel." But the damage was already spreading. Then my phone rang. Coach Bennett, my old volleyball coach. I answered, hoping, naively, for support. "Hey kiddo, I just talked to your mom. She's really worried. Maybe we should all sit down for some family therapy. I know someone great." Even Coach had been turned. I hung up without saying a word. The next morning, I woke up at Dad's house to find a news van parked outside. The local morning show was running a segment on family crises and hospital drama. Mom had given them an interview. Hair done, makeup flawless, eyes perfectly moist with tears as she described her troubled daughter who had caused a violent disruption at a family gathering. The reporter? Someone from Mom's Pilates class. No hard questions, no mention of the expired diet products or Ivy's heart nearly stopping. Just Mom, polished and pitiful, playing victim for the cameras. Inside the hospital, things had only gotten worse. When I arrived to check on Ivy, security blocked me at the entrance. A new notice was in the system. A restraining order had been filed. Mom appeared from around the corner, holding official-looking papers. "It's for everyone's safety," she said loud enough for the guard to hear. "My daughter has been making threats. She's harassing our family. I have evidence." She showed him her phone, the doctored recordings, the out-of-context texts, testimonials from her concerned friends. I watched the security guard's posture shift, his hand inching toward his radio. Dad's lawyer reviewed the documents. "It's temporary, but if it's granted, you won't be able to come within 500 feet of your mother or visit Ivy in the hospital." Mom smiled, tight and triumphant. She'd won this round. That evening, Dad's girlfriend called him. I overheard the conversation from across the room. "I can't be part of this anymore," she said. "It's too toxic." She was leaving him. The stress was consuming everyone around us. So, I made a decision. If Mom wanted war, I could fight back. I remembered she had a sister, Diane, who she'd cut off years ago. No one in the family ever talked about why, but I'd found Diane on social media. She lived 2 states away and had clearly been following the unfolding mess online. I sent her a message. "I need to know what happened between you and my mother." Her reply came quickly. "I've been waiting years for someone to ask." We scheduled a video call for that night. What Diane told me changed everything. She pulled out old diary entries from when she and Mom were teenagers, pages filled with stories of forced dieting, pills, and sisterly competitions that spiraled into cruelty. "She did the same things to me," she said, holding up a high school photo. "But when I tried to speak up, she told everyone I was jealous, said I made it all up for attention." One diary entry made my heart stop. Diane had written about their mother's diet pills, how my mom had started stealing them and giving them to her. The exact same brand I'd seen in that evidence bag at the hospital. "She learned it all from her mother," Diane said. "And when our mom passed, your mom kept her stash. Said it was sentimental." Now I had ammunition, but using it would mean total war. The next morning, I spotted Mom in the hospital parking lot. I tried to record the encounter, held my phone low, pretending to text as she approached. She spotted it instantly. Her expression changed in a flash. Tears welled up. She clutched her chest. "Why are you doing this to our family?" she sobbed, loud enough for the parking lot to hear. "Haven't you heard us enough?" People stopped. Phones came out. She looked like the perfect victim, an innocent mother being harassed by her deranged daughter. I lowered my phone, and for a split second, just one, she smirked. Then the tears returned, right on cue. That afternoon, the temporary restraining order
Was granted. I wasn't allowed to see Ivy. I couldn't go near Mom. I couldn't even enter the same building. The judge had reviewed her so-called evidence, the recordings, the texts, the statements from concerned acquaintances, and now, legally, I was barred from being with my dying sister. Dad's lawyer didn't sugarcoat it. She's been planning this for years. Every text, every interaction, every family gathering, she's been building her case. But what about Ivy? I asked. She needs help. Your mother still has full custody and medical decision-making power. Unless we can prove active harm, she is harming her. Those expired shakes, the laxatives Ivy mentioned. It's your word against hers. And right now, she has a restraining order and a chorus of character witnesses saying you're unstable. That's when it fully hit me. This wasn't just about a controlling parent. This was a fortress, an entire system Mom had spent years constructing to shield herself from consequences. And she'd used my own pain, my own mistakes to build the foundation. But I wasn't that scared 13-year-old anymore. The one who sent those furious texts and screamed into pillows. I had resources now. I had Diane's testimony, I had Dad's support, even if it was unraveling his life. Most importantly, I had the truth. The fight for Ivy's life had only just begun, and I finally understood what we were really up against. Not just my mother, but a legacy of control, a carefully curated network of enablers, and a system that always believed the well-dressed mother over the desperate daughter. I kept thinking back to Ivy's faint voice in the ambulance. She made me take laxatives this morning, too. She was counting on me, and this time I wouldn't fail her. Mom's network moved quicker than I expected. Within hours of the restraining order being issued, I got an email from my university. I've been placed on academic probation, pending an investigation into concerning behavior. The email cited anonymous reports of violent tendencies and recommended counseling before returning to campus. I sat in Dad's kitchen staring at my laptop numb while he paced behind me. His phone wouldn't stop ringing. Clients canceling appointments, his boss suggesting he take some time off to handle family issues. Mom's poison was leaking into every corner of our lives. That night, Diane called with more. She'd gone through old family photos and found something sickening. Pictures from their childhood. Their mother had taken a pen and circled parts of their bodies, marking the areas that needed fixing. In one photo, Mom stood beside a skeletal Diane who was holding a certificate from a fake weight loss camp. She kept these like trophies, Diane said, voice trembling. Even after I begged her to throw them out. I asked her to scan everything. We needed documentation, proof of a generational pattern of abuse. But as the files started coming in, something caught my eye. The metadata showed they'd been scanned just last week. When I asked Diane about it, she hesitated. Your mother contacted me about a month ago. Said she was worried about you, that you were showing signs of mental illness. She wanted to know if there was a family history she should be aware of. My blood went cold. She'd even planted seeds of doubt in Diane's mind, reaching out, laying groundwork, just in case. How many others had she manipulated? How far had this web spread? The next morning brought another blow. Madeline, one of Ivy's friends who had supposedly been dating Mom's lawyer, showed up at Dad's door. She looked exhausted, hollow-eyed. I need to tell you something, she said, glancing over her shoulder nervously. About the lawyer. We're not really dating. Your mom hired him to get close to me, to get information about Ivy. She explained how he had approached her at the gym, how their random encounters were carefully orchestrated. Mom had been using Madeline for months without her even realizing it, pumping her for information about Ivy's condition, her feelings, her state of mind. She knew Ivy was getting worse. She just didn't care. She only wanted dirt on me. I asked her if she would be willing to testify. She shook her head. I signed something, she said, pulling out a crumpled document from her bag. I thought it was just a standard confidentiality form for the law firm. But it wasn't. It was a non-disclosure agreement with a $50,000 penalty. It basically says I can't say anything about our interactions, or I'll be sued.
Dad's lawyer looked over the document and confirmed it. Legally binding. Mom had thought of everything. That afternoon, I made a choice. I went to the hospital, even though the restraining order was still active. I knew I couldn't go near Ivy, but I thought maybe I could talk to someone on staff, get a clearer picture of her condition. I parked across the street and waited, watching the entrance during shift change, hoping to catch a nurse or doctor heading out. That's when I saw Mom exit the building with a woman I didn't recognize. Someone dressed in sleek, expensive clothes, designer bags slung over one shoulder. They were laughing. Mom touched her arm in a way that felt oddly familiar. I followed them at a distance, careful to stay far enough back to avoid violating the order. They stopped at a coffee shop nearby. I watched through the window as Mom pulled out a stack of papers, pointing to sections while the woman nodded. Then the woman signed something and handed Mom an envelope, thick, bulky, probably filled with cash. I snapped photos on my phone, zooming in as much as I could. After they left, I gave it a few minutes before walking inside. A barista, maybe early 20s, was wiping down the table they'd just vacated. He had gauges and tired eyes. "Hey, weird question," I said casually. "Those two women who were just here, do they come in often?" He shrugged. "The blonde one's here a lot, always meeting different people, always got paperwork. I figured she was in real estate or something." I thanked him and left, my thoughts racing. Mom was meeting people, trading documents, accepting envelopes. But for what? The answer came that evening when Dad got a call from his bank. Someone had tried to access his accounts using old security questions. His mother's maiden name, his first pet's name, the kind of stuff only Mom would know. The bank flagged it, but the message was clear. "She's trying to drain me," Dad said, collapsing into a chair. "She wants to make sure I can't afford a lawyer." We stayed up all night resetting passwords, placing fraud alerts on his accounts, contacting credit agencies. But the fallout had already begun. Dad's credit cards were declined the next morning. When he called the issuer, they told him the cards had been reported stolen. Mom was dismantling our ability to fight, piece by piece. The next day, Sarah, the hospital social worker, called me. She wanted to meet in person, said she had concerns about Ivy's care, things she couldn't say over the phone. We met at a quiet diner downtown. She arrived looking anxious, constantly checking her phone. When she finally sat down, she slid a folder across the table. "I shouldn't be showing you this," she said quietly, "but something's off." Inside the folder were Ivy's intake forms, multiple versions of them. Each one listed different information, different weights, different medical histories, different emergency contacts, all signed by Mom, all dated the same day. She kept changing her story, Sarah explained. At first, Ivy was 90 pounds, then 85, then 78. First, the eating disorder started last year, then 3 years ago, then in childhood. It's like she was testing which version of events would get the biggest reaction. I flipped through the pages, tracking the evolution. Mom had been gaming the system, trying to find the narrative that would buy her the most sympathy, the most control. The final version, the one that got Ivy admitted to the ICU, made her sound critically ill and put the blame on my recent visit. "There's more," Sarah said. She pulled out her phone and showed me photos from the hospital gift shop. Mom at the register, buying flowers, cards, balloons, even chocolates. Hundreds of dollars worth. "She buys this stuff constantly," Sarah said, "but it never makes it to Ivy's room." "Where does it go?" "To staff. Nurses, doctors, administrators, with handwritten cards expressing endless gratitude for their care and support." Mom was buying loyalty, creating a web of goodwill so thick that no one would question her. She was the generous, heartbroken mother, the one who brought gifts, the one who always smiled. No wonder so many people had taken her side. Sarah leaned forward, her voice low. "I've been in social work for 10 years. I've seen abusive parents before. But this," she shook her head, "this is something else. She's not just manipulating the system, she's orchestrating it." I asked her if she'd be willing to document it, help us build a case. She looked conflicted, biting her lip. I want to, but she's already filed a complaint against me, accused me of bias, of being unprofessional.
One more complaint and Sarah could lose her job. Another ally neutralized. Mom's chess game was meticulous, every move calculated. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept picturing Ivy alone in her hospital bed, probably listening to more of Mom's lies. I had to find a way to reach her, to let her know I hadn't given up. Then I remembered something. Years ago, Ivy and I had shared an email account. We used it to write stories together, taking turns, adding new paragraphs. It had been our secret, one Mom never knew about. The password? Our shared middle name plus our birthdays. I logged in, heart racing. The account was still active, and there, in the drafts folder, was a new message, dated just yesterday, from Ivy. I know you're trying to help. Mom says you're sick, that you're trying to hurt us, but I remember what you did when I took those pills. You saved me. She's making me take more things, different pills. She says they're vitamins, but they make me feel worse. I'm scared. Please don't give up on me. I broke down sobbing. She was still in there, reaching out the only way she could through something we'd created together, long before things turned dark. I started writing back immediately, telling her about Dad's emergency custody motion, about the evidence we were collecting. But before I could finish the message, I was logged out. I tried to log back in, but the password had been changed. Mom had found it. She'd probably been watching it all along, waiting for me to slip up. And now she had what she needed. Proof that I had contacted Ivy, violating the restraining order. Sure enough, the next morning, Dad's lawyer called. She's filed an emergency motion, he said. She's claiming digital stalking, that you're trying to manipulate a vulnerable patient. She's requesting to extend the restraining order and press charges. The hearing was set for the next day. We need character witnesses, the lawyer said. People who can vouch for your stability, your intentions. But when we started making calls, we realized the damage had already been done. My college advisor had received anonymous concerns about my mental health. Former teammates from volleyball had been warned to stay away, that I was going through something. Even the manager at Summers, the restaurant where I'd worked, said someone had called asking if I had a record of violent outbursts toward customers. None of it was true. But the seeds had been planted. Doubt had taken root. Who was going to testify for someone with a supposedly unstable history? In desperation, I reached out to someone Mom likely hadn't thought to manipulate. My high school chemistry teacher, Mr. Ellison. He'd retired last year and moved out to the coast. When I called, he listened silently as I told him everything. When I finally stopped, he said, "I always wondered about your home life. You and Ivy both showed signs. But your mother, she fooled us. She was so involved, so concerned." He agreed to write a character statement for the court. But even he wasn't hopeful. He's had years to build her story. You had days. The night before the hearing, I sat at the kitchen table with Dad, going over everything we'd gathered. Diane's account of their childhood, the expired shakes, Sarah's notes on the gift shop purchases, Madeline's revelation about the lawyer. It felt like a mountain of truth. But Dad's lawyer wasn't optimistic. "It's all circumstantial," he said. "She'll have explanations for everything. And with her character witnesses against your limited support," he didn't need to finish. We both knew we were likely going to lose. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I nearly ignored it, but something told me to answer. "Is this Ivy's sister?" The voice was male, young, nervous. "Who is this?" "I'm Jason. I'm a nurse on night shift. I need to talk to you about your sister." We arranged to meet at a nearby 24-hour diner. He arrived in wrinkled scrubs, looking both exhausted and terrified. He scanned the room like he expected Mom to appear at any second. "I could lose my license for this," he said, "but I can't stay quiet anymore." He pulled out his phone and showed me photos he'd taken during his shifts, Ivy's medication chart. The dosages were way off. Some of the prescriptions were being administered on an empty stomach when they were supposed to be given with food.
and the amounts far higher than recommended for someone her size. Mom insists on being present for all medication administration, he explained. She says Ivy's resistant, needs encouragement. Then he showed me another photo. Mom's purse sitting open on the bedside table.
Among the usual purse contents were pills. Different shapes, different colors, none in prescription bottles. She adds things, Jason whispered. I've seen her. She crushes pills into Ivy's apple juice, mixes powder into the protein shakes. When I asked about it once, she said they were vitamins her regular doctor prescribed. But I've been a nurse for 5 years. Those aren't vitamins. I asked if he'd reported any of it. He shook his head. To who? She's tight with the charge nurse, brings coffee for the night supervisor. Everyone loves her. They'd think I was paranoid. But Jason hadn't stayed passive. He'd been documenting everything. Photos, timestamps, dosage records. He'd even managed to pocket one of the pills Mom had tried to give Ivy, planning to have it tested. Your sister's getting worse because of those pills, he said. Her body can't metabolize them in her condition, but the doctors just chalk it up to a standard eating disorder. No one's looking deeper. I asked if he'd testify. He paled. I can't. If she finds out I talked to you. I understood. Mom's influence was everywhere. But Jason gave me the documentation, the photos, the records. It was something. Finally, something. As we walked out of the diner, Jason grabbed my arm. There's more, he said. Your mom's been talking about transferring Ivy to some facility in Arizona. Says it's a specialty clinic, but I looked it up. It doesn't exist. The address is just empty desert. My blood ran cold. She was planning to disappear Ivy. I called Dad's lawyer immediately, breathless, but he was cautious. If we use Jason's info, it could be thrown out. Illegally obtained evidence like that, it could backfire, badly. The hearing was in just 6 hours. We had evidence, but not admissible evidence. We had witnesses, but none willing to testify. And we were up against a system Mom had manipulated from every angle. But we also had something she hadn't expected. Ivy herself. In all her scheming, Mom had made a fatal mistake. She assumed Ivy would always be her silent, obedient little puppet, that Ivy would always play her role. She never thought Ivy might fight back. That email draft Ivy left wasn't just a cry for help. It was encoded with the old childhood cipher we used in our stories. Hidden in the message were the names of the pills, the times she was made to take them, even things Mom had said about her plans, assuming Ivy was too far gone to remember. Ivy had been documenting her own abuse from the inside, and she'd found a way to get it to me, even under surveillance, even from a hospital bed. The hearing was in 6 hours, and Mom thought she'd already won. But the war for Ivy's life wasn't over yet. The emergency hearing came sooner than expected. At 6 a.m., Dad's phone buzzed, an alert that the judge had moved it up to 8 a.m. due to the urgency. We scrambled to get dressed. Dad's hands trembled as he tied his tie. Outside, the courthouse steps were slick with morning dew. Mom was already there, flanked by her army. 3 women from her Pilates class, even my old volleyball coach, and the local reporter who'd interviewed her. They formed a halo around her while she dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, looking the picture of heartbreak. Inside the courtroom, I spotted Madeline seated in the back row. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Her lawyer, the one Mom had hired, was seated at Mom's table, reviewing notes, his posture smug and composed. Then the door opened, and Judge Catherine Winters entered, stern, silver-haired, sharp-eyed. She was the same judge who'd overseen the original custody case years ago. She reviewed the request for the restraining order extension while Mom's lawyer presented their evidence, the edited voice clips, the email login, testimonies from concerned citizens warning of my supposed instability. Then it was our turn. Dad's lawyer stood and presented what we had: Diane's diaries, photos of the expired shakes, the documentation from Jason showing medication irregularities. But Judge Winters frowned more with each piece. This appears to be hearsay, and in the case of the medical records, potentially obtained without legal authority. She looked directly at me. Did you access your mom's email account without permission? I opened my mouth to explain, to tell her about Ivy's coded message, how she was trying to communicate, but Dad's lawyer gently touched my arm. I understood. Any admission would only strengthen Mom's position. The judge continued reviewing the documents for what felt like forever. 20 minutes of silence and flipping pages. Mom sat still, dabbing the same dry tissue to her eye, a model of composed grief. Her performance? Flawed.
Protect her sick daughter from a vindictive sibling. I'm granting the restraining order extension, Judge Winters announced. Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to the district attorney for possible criminal charges related to cyber harassment and stalking. My stomach sank. Criminal charges, jail time. My breath caught. Then the courtroom doors burst open. Sarah, the social worker, rushed in, face flushed, hair a mess, clutching a thick folder. Your Honor, I apologize for the interruption, but I have urgent information concerning the welfare of the minor child. Judge Winters looked irritated, but motioned for her to approach. Sarah stepped to the bench and handed over the folder. These are Ivy's medical records from the past 72 hours. Her condition has declined rapidly. She's showing signs of refeeding syndrome, brought on by mismanaged nutritional care. The attending physician suspects someone has been interfering with her treatment. Mom's lawyer shot to his feet. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. This social worker has demonstrated clear bias. Sit down, counselor, the judge snapped. She began flipping through the records, her expression turning graver with each page. There's more, Sarah continued. Hospital security footage shows Mrs. Ellery, Mom's last name, adding unidentified substances to Ivy's feeding tube. When questioned by nursing staff, she claimed they were prescribed supplements, but no physician has any record of them. The courtroom exploded in whispers. Mom's little circle of supporters turned toward each other in confusion. Mom stood, pointing directly at me. This is her doing. She's poisoned everyone against me. I'm trying to save my daughter. Order! Judge Winters banged her gavel. Mrs. Ellery, sit down immediately. Sarah pulled out her phone and approached the bench. Even from across the room, I could see the footage. Mom crushing pills, stirring them into Ivy's feeding bag. The timestamp? Just yesterday, after visiting hours. Your Honor, Child Protective Services is requesting immediate intervention. Ivy's life is at risk. The judge's jaw tightened. She turned to Mom's lawyer. Counselor, do you have any explanation for your client's behavior in this footage? He shuffled papers, face pale. I was not made aware of this evidence. I need time to confer with my client. You'll have plenty of time, Judge Winters interrupted. Bailiff, take Mrs. Ellery into custody pending investigation for child endangerment. Mom screamed. No, you don't understand. She needs those supplements. If I stop, she'll get fat. I'm saving her. She lunged toward the exit, knocking over her lawyer's briefcase, sending documents flying. Her Pilates friends scattered as she shoved past them. But 2 additional bailiffs were already at the door. They grabbed her arms, snapping handcuffs in place as she thrashed and wailed. You're killing her! You're all killing her! In the middle of the chaos, I saw Madeline rising slowly from the back row. Tears streaked her face. She walked toward Dad's lawyer and pulled out her phone. I recorded him, the lawyer, at dinner last week. He told me exactly what to say about Ivy. He coached me. I know I signed that contract, but she looked toward Mom, now screaming obscenities as she was dragged from the room. I can't let Ivy die for this. Judge Winters called for order once more. Slowly the room quieted. Then she looked at me. Her gaze now softened. Young lady, your actions were inappropriate and illegal, but it's clear your intention was to protect your sister. I'm dismissing the restraining order. I will also be recommending that the district attorney decline to pursue charges. Then she raised one finger. However, you are not to have any contact with your mother until the criminal investigation is complete. Is that understood? I nodded, tears streaming down my face. The judge turned toward Dad. As for Ivy's care, I'm granting emergency custody to Mr. Rains, effective immediately. CPS will provide oversight and support. The rest passed in a blur. Mom was taken to county jail. Dad rushed to the hospital to take over medical decisions. Sarah promised to expedite all custody documentation. Madeline handed over her phone, her recording, as evidence. I don't care what it costs. This can't go on. At the hospital, I was finally allowed to see Ivy. She looked worse than ever. Gray-tinted skin, dark circles, machines tracking her every heartbeat. The nurse explained that the pills Mom had been sneaking her were a mix of diuretics, laxatives, and expired stimulants, a toxic blend that had pushed Ivy's already fragile system to the brink.
Fragile system to the brink. Dad sat on one side of Ivy's hospital bed. I sat on the other. Neither of us spoke. There was nothing left to say. We'd won the legal battle, but Ivy was barely alive. That evening, Jason found me in the hospital cafeteria. He slid a printout across the table. That pill I took from your mom's purse, it tested positive for a banned substance, something outlawed back in 2016. Same chemical that was linked to 3 deaths at that weight loss clinic in Nevada. He shook his head. Your mom wasn't just controlling her, she was poisoning her. I stared at the results, my hands trembling. All those years of Mom insisting she was saving us from obesity, from shame. She'd been slowly killing Ivy instead. In the days that followed, more truth came out. Police searched Mom's house and found hordes of expired diet products, some dating back over 20 years. Diane flew in and gave a sworn statement describing their mother's same abusive tactics. The district attorney built a case for attempted murder, though Dad's lawyer warned it would likely be pled down to aggravated child abuse. Mom's support system disintegrated almost overnight. The Pilates friend stopped answering her calls. The volleyball coach reached out and apologized, saying he'd been manipulated. The reporter faced a wave of public backlash for her biased coverage. One by one, the people Mom had carefully gathered around her vanished. But the damage was already done. Ivy remained in critical condition. Years of starvation had weakened her heart, deteriorated her bones, and damaged vital organs. The doctors didn't talk about recovery. They talked about long-term management. Dad took a leave of absence. His boss, now sympathetic after the news coverage, offered his full support. We spent our days trading shifts at the hospital, reading to Ivy, playing her favorite music, just being there. On the 5th day, her eyes fluttered open. Her lips moved, barely a whisper. Is Mom coming? My chest caved in. Even after all of it, she was still that little girl reaching for her mother's approval. No, I said softly. Mom can't come. Her eyes filled with tears. Did I do something wrong? Did I gain weight? Dad took her hand and leaned in. No, sweetheart, you didn't do anything wrong. Mom is sick. She hurt you. But we're going to take care of you now. The deprogramming would take months, doctors warned. Maybe years. Ivy had to relearn everything. How to eat, how to see food as nourishment, how to unlearn all the lies she'd been told since she was a child. 2 weeks later, Mom's lawyer contacted Dad with an offer. She'd plead guilty to child endangerment if we agreed to supervised visitation once she completed treatment. Dad threw the letter straight into the trash. She doesn't get to negotiate, he said, not after what she did. The prosecutor agreed. With the weight of evidence we had, Mom now faced up to 15 years in prison. The trial wouldn't be easy, but it would be necessary. After 3 weeks in ICU, Ivy was transferred to a residential treatment facility that specialized in eating disorders. It was state-of-the-art and expensive. Dad's savings were gone. My college fund was wiped out. But then Aunt Julie stepped in. I should have seen it, she said during a visit, voice heavy with guilt. All those years, I just thought your mom was strict. I didn't realize. She trailed off, eyes glassy. Madeline visited once Ivy was stable enough for non-family guests. She brought flowers and a quiet apology. I'm so sorry, she said, voice cracking. I really thought I was helping. Your mom made it seem like you were the danger. Ivy stared at her. No reaction. Too tired for forgiveness, too drained for rage. The facility was strict. No outside food, minimal visitation, mandatory group therapy, and daily individual counseling.
Ivy hated it at first, begged Dad to take her home. But slowly, she began to participate, to engage. Tiny, stubborn steps forward. Meanwhile, I returned to college after the prosecutor confirmed I wouldn't face any charges. My professors were surprisingly understanding. The academic probation was lifted once everything came to light. Still, focusing on my coursework was nearly impossible. My mind stayed with Ivy. Mom's trial was set for 6 months out, but her lawyer kept filing motions, trying to stall. From jail, Mom sent letters to anyone who'd still read them. She painted herself as the victim of a conspiracy, raving about how the diet industry had turned on her, insisting that society punished her for telling the truth about obesity. Her letters were erratic, paranoid, scattered. Some of her old friends visited. None of them came back twice. Without her polished image to hide behind, Mom's mask had finally cracked. The woman they encountered now wasn't the composed, generous figure they once admired. She was ranting, obsessed, consumed by the same warped ideology that nearly killed her daughter. Fragile system to the brink. Dad sat on one side of Ivy's hospital bed. I sat on the other. Neither of us spoke. There was nothing left to say. We'd won the legal battle, but Ivy was barely alive. That evening, Jason found me in the hospital cafeteria. He slid a printout across the table. "That pill I took from your mom's purse? It tested positive for a banned substance, something outlawed back in 2016. Same chemical that was linked to 3 deaths at that weight loss clinic in Nevada." He shook his head. "Your mom wasn't just controlling her, she was poisoning her." I stared at the results, my hands trembling. All those years of Mom insisting she was saving us from obesity, from shame, she'd been slowly killing Ivy instead. In the days that followed, more truth came out. Police searched Mom's house and found hordes of expired diet products, some dating back over 20 years. Diane flew in and gave a sworn statement, describing their mother's same abusive tactics. The district attorney built a case for attempted murder, though my dad's lawyer warned it would likely be pled down to aggravated child abuse. Mom's support system disintegrated almost overnight. The Pilates friends stopped answering her calls. The volleyball coach reached out and apologized, saying he'd been manipulated. The reporter faced a wave of public backlash for her biased coverage. One by one, the people Mom had carefully gathered around her vanished. But the damage was already done. Ivy remained in critical condition. Years of starvation had weakened her heart, deteriorated her bones, and damaged vital organs. The doctors didn't talk about recovery. They talked about long-term management. Dad took a leave of absence. His boss, now sympathetic after the news coverage, offered his full support. We spent our days trading shifts at the hospital, reading to Ivy, playing her favorite music, just being there. On the 5th day, her eyes fluttered open. Her lips moved, barely a whisper. "Is Mom coming?" My chest caved in. Even after all of it, she was still that little girl reaching for her mother's approval. "No," I said softly. "Mom can't come." Her eyes filled with tears. "Did I do something wrong? Did I gain weight?" Dad took her hand and leaned in. "No, sweetheart, you didn't do anything wrong. Mom is sick. She hurt you, but we're going to take care of you now." The deprogramming would take months, doctors warned, maybe years. Ivy had to relearn everything: how to eat, how to see food as nourishment, how to unlearn all the lies she'd been told since she was a child. 2 weeks later, Mom's lawyer contacted Dad with an offer. She'd plead guilty to child endangerment if we agreed to supervised visitation once she completed treatment. Dad threw the letter straight into the trash. He doesn't get to negotiate, not after what she did. The prosecutor agreed. With the weight of evidence we had, Mom now faced up to 15 years in prison. The trial wouldn't be easy, but it would be necessary. After 3 weeks in ICU, Ivy was transferred to a residential treatment facility that specialized in eating disorders. It was state-of-the-art and expensive. Dad's savings were gone. My college fund was wiped out. But then Aunt Julie stepped in. "I should have seen it," she said during a visit, voice heavy with guilt. "All those years, I just thought your mom was strict. I didn't realize." She trailed off, eyes glassy. Madeline visited once Ivy was stable enough for non-family guests. She brought flowers and a quiet apology. "I'm so sorry," she said, voice cracking. "I really thought I was helping. Your mom made it seem like you were the danger." Ivy stared at her. No reaction. Too tired for forgiveness, too drained for rage. The facility was strict. No outside food, minimal visitation, mandatory group therapy, and daily individual counseling. Ivy hated it at first, begged Dad to take her home. But slowly, she began to participate, to engage, tiny, stubborn steps forward. Mom's decrees continued to make headlines, but now they were portrayed in a different light. The national news picked up the story, interviewed people who'd known Mom for years, and analyzed her obsession with Asian media. Even her most devoted allies couldn't deny it anymore. Her obsession had crossed the line into madness. 3 months into treatment, Ivy had a breakthrough. During a family therapy session, she looked me directly in the eyes for the first time since the hospital. "I knew," she said quietly. "I knew the pills were making me sick, but I took them anyway, because at least when I was dying, she paid attention to me." The therapist guided us through it gently, helping us to peel back the layers of trauma, grief, and manipulation. Dad cried for the first time, completely broke down. I hadn't seen that side of him before. We were all damaged in different ways, all of us carrying scars carved by years of Mom's control. Progress wasn't linear. Ivy had relapses, days she wouldn't eat, nights she compulsively exercised in her room. But the staff at the facility was patient and steady. They never punished her. They just stayed. Recovery would take time. Diane became a constant presence in our lives. She flew in once a month, sitting with Ivy during therapy, sharing her own story of survival, how it had taken her decades to untangle the lies about her body, how healing was messy, but possible. Her visits gave Ivy hope, gave all of us hope. 5 months after Mom's arrest, the prosecutor called with an update. She had agreed to plead guilty, multiple counts of child endangerment and assault. The sentence, a minimum of 8 years, maximum of 12. No possibility of contacting Ivy until she turned 25, and only if Ivy initiated it. Dad hung up the phone and turned to us. "It's over." But we all knew it wasn't. "Not really," I said. The facility recommended Ivy remain in treatment for a full year. Insurance covered some of it. The rest, Dad made up by working overtime. I picked up a part-time job and sent what I could. Aunt Julie organized a fundraiser through her church. Even Madeline contributed, still weighed down with guilt for the part she played, however unknowingly. As Ivy's weight stabilized again, she began to look more like herself. The sharpness in her face softened. Her hair started to grow back in thick, healthy waves. But the real change? It was in her eyes. Bit by bit, the life returned. Mom's sentencing took place on a rainy Tuesday. We didn't attend. Dad said it would only feed her, give her one last audience. Instead, we spent the day at Ivy's facility. We played board games, ate lunch together, watched old movies, did all the ordinary family things we'd never been allowed to do. That was our justice. The local news aired a clip of Mom's statement to the court. No remorse, no apology, only her final chilling claim. One day, society will thank me for trying to save my daughters from obesity.